After a year of tumultuous discussion surrounding race in America, one of the names that has regained some significant recognition is that of Angela Davis. Although she no longer holds the same level of national attention as she once did, her re-emergence is still worth examining. Davis made most of her mark as a Marxist African-American woman, at a time in America when being Marxist African-American and a woman were all fairly undesirable social positions. This didn't stop Davis from breaking the law, even to the expense of her own freedom. I'm happy to share that this video is sponsored by Fabulous, the #1 self-care app to help you build better habits and achieve your goals. According to Aristotle, to live a good life is to understand that we are what we repeatedly do. However, this is easier said than done. Whether you want to meditate more or drink more water, building habits is hard. Thankfully, there's an app for that. Fabulous makes it easy for anyone to develop and stick to healthy habits, thanks to science-backed routines, resulting in a healthier, happier, and more productive you. I actually used Fabulous to quit my own habit of going on my phone before bed, something that I've tried to eliminate from my life for years. Fabulous made it a lot more easier and rewarding to quit this habit, and thanks to this app, I was finally able to go to bed phoneless. Here's 2 main reasons why I think Fabulous works so well for me. For one, it's 100% personalized, providing me with schedules and reminders that are specific to who I am. Secondly, it's almost like having your own coach in your pocket. Fabulous serves as a guide to finding your ideal daily routine in a supportive and fun way. A premium membership with Fabulous unlocks all journeys and exercises. It also restores and backs up all of your progress. The first 100 people who click on the link will get a free week trial and 25% off Fabulous Premium to start building their ideal daily routine. Born in 1944 in Birmingham, Alabama, Davis grew up in the Dynamite Hill neighborhood, which was largely famous for being the street that would be regularly bombed in order to keep middle-class black people from moving there. Davis's mother, a national officer in an African-American youth congress, worked to build alliances among black people in the South. The influences of the Communist Party on this congress likely influenced Davis's own politics. Angela Davis herself would march to protest against racial segregation, well as a Girl Scout. In university, Davis met the Frankfurt School philosopher Herbert Marcuse while at a rally. Marcuse is best known for criticizing capitalism, technology, the Soviet form of communism, and mainstream entertainment. As Davis recalls, Herbert Marcuse taught me that it was possible to be an academic, an activist, a scholar, and a revolutionary. She would later study under him. Davis would go on to study French and Sartre throughout her degree. While studying in France, Davis learned that a church in Birmingham was bombed by the KKK, killing 4 black girls that Davis personally knew. This event would greatly impact her choices to advocate for the end of racial segregation. After she earned a doctorate in philosophy, Davis became an acting assistant professor at UCLA. Unfortunately, in the same year, the university would introduce a policy that was against the hiring of communists. Later on, Davis would be fired, an action that was reportedly initiated by then California Governor Ronald Reagan. Although her firing was briefly overruled, she was fired again for calling the police pigs and discussing the poor treatment of protesters by the police. Angela Davis's life would change in 1970. At the time, Davis was supporting the Soledad brothers, 3 black inmates who had killed a white prison guard in retaliation for the shooting deaths of 3 black prisoners that was caused by a different guard. The controversial case reached new heights of insanity when Jonathan Jackson, one of the brothers of the Soledad brothers, gained control of a courtroom and, with a significant number of guns, took the judge and 3 jurors hostage. The entire event led to 4 deaths, including the judge. After investigation, it was determined that Davis had purchased several of the weapons used by Jackson and that she had been corresponding with the Soledad brothers. These accusations quickly placed Angela Davis on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list for kidnapping and murder. Davis left California but was eventually found 2 months later. While in jail, Davis reached considerable infamy. A large campaign developed, including John Lennon and Yoko Ono's song Angela, and the dairy farmer Roger McAfee paying her $100,000 bail. On June 4th, 1972, an all-white jury returned Davis a verdict of not guilty. Davis would spend the 1970s speaking and lecturing, as well as engaging in lots of activism. She would travel to Cuba and state that only under socialism could the fight against racism be successfully executed. Her socialist leanings were of course monitored greatly by the government. Back in 1963, she had been questioned by the FBI for attending communist-sponsored events, and in 1971, the CIA estimated that at least 5% of Soviet propaganda was directed towards Davis. This reached its peak in 1971, when Davis went to Moscow to be awarded the Lenin Peace Prize and praised the October Revolution. Some, such as Solzhenitsyn, criticized Davis for ignoring the prisoners of socialism. According to him, Davis had declined to support Czech prisoners. Supposedly, she argued that the prisoners were undermining the socialist government. In fact, one of Davis's greatest criticisms is the seeming contradiction between her anti-discriminatory activism at home and pro-Soviet stance abroad. This considerable blindness to the horrors of her own side is best exhibited in Davis's correspondence with Jim Jones' People's Temple, a cult that practiced a sort of communist and Christian ideology mixed with racial equality. 14 months before the infamous Jonestown massacre, Davis openly expressed support for the People's Temple and suggested that there was a conspiracy against some of its members. When you are attacked, it is because of your progressive stand, and we feel that it is directly an attack against us as well. Some have suggested that this stoked the paranoia that eventually ended in massacre. Recently, Davis has been touring and teaching. She has largely spent her last decade in support of the prison abolition movement. One of Angela Davis's greatest influences is that of Marxism. This began with her introduction to Herbert Marcuse, who exposed her to several Marxist works. The Communist Manifesto hit me like a bolt of lightning. I read it avidly, finding in it answers to many of the seemingly unanswerable dilemmas which had plagued me. I began to see the problems of black people within the context of a large working-class movement. What struck me so emphatically was the idea that once the emancipation of the proletariat became a reality, the foundation was laid for the emancipation of all oppressed groups in society. Davis would commit much of her life to understanding the impact of capitalist state oppression in the US, especially when it influenced the lives of minorities. She also expanded on the new developments that exist with the rise of global capitalism, such as the significance of women's labor in manufacturing and reproduction, and how this has changed the class structures in the global South. From this, Davis has advocated for the introduction of new methodological approaches in Marxist theory. Another similar influence in Davis's thought is that of critical theory. Early on, my philosophical orientation was grounded in critical theory, and that I never seriously considered philosophy except in relation to its potential role in social transformation. Davis has consistently emphasized for the importance of applying academic knowledge to radical activism, and vice versa, in order to change the world for the better. One of the most prominent areas in which she does this is through her use of the term radical capitalism, which she uses to encourage people to think about the ways in which capitalism and racism are interlinked. From Davis's point of view, there is no capitalism without racism, as much of the institutions require a deprived social class. This deprivation is specifically addressed in her advocacy for prison abolition. Davis argues that prisons are obsolete institutions that do nothing but add societal harm. Using critical theory, she suggests that America's legal systems are predominantly founded in order to deprive freedom. This creates a disadvantage for black people who were involuntarily brought to America, and because of this were compelled to violate the law. She points to the 13th Amendment, which legalizes the enslavement of criminals, and argues that this does little but preserve the racialization of crime and punishment. Davis's prison experience, captured in an autobiography, provides a more personal justification for prison abolition. The dehumanization that she experienced paints a picture of an inhumane institution. However, she notes that resistance must come from the outside, because of the prison's ability to beat down the prisoner. Prison life is an antithetical society that thrives off of the prisoner's needs for jail life to reflect some semblance of life outside. The prisoner's expectations ironically aid in the system's dehumanization of them. Davis has spent much of her career promoting the views of black women. Even though she has some ties with the Black Panthers, she still noted that the organization failed to advocate for gender equality and instead pushed forth a patriarchal ideology. Instead, Davis has placed black women at the center of analysis in order to demonstrate the unified and simultaneous essence of race, gender, and class systems. I felt that to write about my life would require a posture of difference, an assumption that I was unlike other women, other black women, and therefore needed to explain myself. I felt that such a book might end up obscuring the most essential fact, The forces that have made my life what it is are the very same forces that have shaped and misshaped the lives of millions of my people. Davis could be seen as a radical and at times hypocritical leftist, uncompromising to the point of fault. Her ties with the People's Temple and cold shoulder to USSR prison conditions is difficult to justify. At the same time, she existed in an era where a lack of compromise was necessary if any change was to be enacted. Without ignoring the bad, Davis did present an image that reached millions, of a black woman unafraid of confrontation and supporting what she felt was right. This was brilliantly composed through her ability to unite the academic with the activist, the theory with action. It was Davis herself that has stated, "What has been a consistent theme in my life has been the convergence of academic knowledge and knowledge generated in the course of actively struggling for radical change."